And I'm always interested in how we're accused of conspiracy theory. Being conspiracy theorists. Like the last couple of years, the people pointing at us saying you're a conspiracy theorist, and they've got 100 needles in them of boosters, and they've got a mask on, and they're standing on this dot that people told them to stand on, and they can't go anywhere without the 500th booster, and they're telling us that we're conspiracy theorists. It's just absurd. So even right now, what you are talking about, what we're going to talk about in a minute, we're accused of being paranoid conspiracy theorists, but the evidence is right before our eyes, especially as the United States is literally sinking into a destructive cesspool. And it's just clear right before our eyes who's in charge now. Let's just step back just for a second here. Your essay in our book, Barack Obama's True Legacy, just fascinating. I remember reading it. It's just every sentence is just opening your eyes, and you begin to realize not everything is what you think it seems. Just as you say, the revolutions in Eastern Europe, I don't know about all of them, but some of them, but turns out the KGB is behind those revolutions. I mean, these things are planned years ahead, decades ahead by very, very smart people and evil people, devious people. In your essay, the story begins. Obama is conceived by parents who were studying the Russian language. They met in Russian class.
Yep.
And they were studying Russian in 1961. Why? Okay, we don't have many hours here today, but we do know that they were very pro-Soviet parents. We know that Obama was mentored by Frank Marshall Davis. And as you point out, the evidence is there that he was most likely a KGB agent. And so all these puzzles begin to fit together. But there was a woman in a dinner in Moscow back in the 1990, I think it was, early
The
90s.
Tom Fife story, which is a big, yeah, I put in my article, my interview with Tom
Yes.
Fife, who is an American physicist.
Yeah, so go ahead with that. This was an incredible testimony. And even his son says that at that time he came home and told him about this. Tell us about this.
Yeah, Tom Fife was a physicist who was working in Moscow in 1992, early 92, after the fall of the Soviet Union. He'd gotten involved in a joint venture with a British businessman, and they had one of those venture capitalist things where the Soviet Academy of Sciences, now the Russian Academy of the Sciences, was working with them, where the Russians have 51% ownership of the enterprise, and the British and American partners have 49%. So, and they were working on handheld devices like, our iPhones, but it was primitive then. It was for businessmen. It was for keeping addresses and doing things on a little device. So they were working on this, and they were at a dinner party in Moscow where a number of the partners they were gonna go back to the West, go back to Britain and America, and the Russians have these parties where you sit around and someone says something and they take a drink, and then the next person says something and they take a drink, and they go around like this, and they're eating and drinking. And so this one American engineer on this project made a faux pas, and of course he said something, but I never realized how much Mongolian blood was in Russians. I saw so many Mongolian faces. And this offended a lady who was the wife of the head Russian scientist, and she was said to be a KGB, person, part of the KGB, because they said the euphemism they said about her was that she climbed two ladders. She had her career with this group, scientific working group, but she also worked with the security services. So they were all kind of afraid of her. She got offended by this American engineer making the statement about Russians having Mongolian features, and she then lashed out at American racism. And then she said, well, you're going to have a black president one day, and we have been grooming him and cultivating him for years. And she even knew his first name, Barack, and she said, Uganda. No, that's not it. And she said, he's a chocolate baby. He's got a white mother and a black African father. And he's gone to the Ivy League, and you will not be able to resist him. And so it's like, it's so, and of course, he, as an American scientist working in Russia, he was obligated under he was working with the Defense Intelligence Agency. He had security clearances and he was obligated to report this to them. He did. As he told me, he reported it to them and he had everything was written down. There's a file somewhere in the Defense Intelligence Agency on this. And I don't know who has it. It could be somebody good or bad. I don't know. But this is a really important story because I had interviewed him. I spent hours with him on the phone before I interviewed him for my radio show, and the transcript is from my radio show when I did it with him years ago. And I had done, when I'd worked for Newsmax and World Daily, I'd interviewed a lot of people who did business in Russia. And he told me the same story that they all tell you, is that it's very hard to make money and you end up losing your money. And that 49-51% thing is just a way of being robbed, right? And so they went through the same thing. His whole business story, it lines up with all the people that have done business over there, except for a handful. There's some exceptions. And he was very modest and very honest. And so I found him incredibly compelling when I didn't expect to. I got to be honest, Jamie, this story seemed too much in alignment with, when I hear something too much in alignment with my prejudices, I think, oh, they're just playing up to my prejudices, right? Because I don't want to be prejudiced. I want to find the truth. I want to be truthful. And when you said earlier about conspiracy theory, I have a problem with conspiracy theory, but I don't have a problem with it when it's conspiracy history, when it's established, when the facts are established. That's not a theory anymore. It's not a theory that Barack Obama was mentored by a communist. It's not a theory that Obama brought Marxists into the State Department. It's not a theory that the Russian reset helped Russia to the tune of billions, or that Uranium One deal happened. Those aren't theories. That's history.